Good evening and welcome to Capitol Report on NTD Television. Here's what's coming up. With less than 3 days until government funding expires, House Republicans are discontent with the leadership's stopgap bill. Now, Trump's coming out against it. What's next for the bill? The Supreme Court agrees to hear TikTok's challenge to a looming January ban, but top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell is calling out on the High Court to reject the appeal. Fighting their way to get confirmed, President-elect Trump's cabinet picks seeking support on Capitol Hill, as some of them have to come under scrutiny. A key nominee is set to soon face his first public questioning.
This is Capitol Report, live from our global headquarters in our nation's capital. Here's Steve Lance.
Good evening. I'm Jack Bradley, filling in here for Steve Lance. President-elect Trump and some Republican lawmakers are opposing a stopgap spending bill that congressional leaders plan to push through to avert a government shutdown. The shutdown deadline is this Friday. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez joins us in studio. Luis, first of all, what is a continuing resolution and why are we seeing it right now, right before Christmas?
Of course, Jack. Well, a continuing resolution is a stopgap bill, as you mentioned earlier, that will keep the same levels of funding as the last appropriations resolution, so the same level of funding for different government departments as was approved last year. Now, the fiscal deadline, Jack, was on September, but Congress missed that deadline, passed a continuing resolution until December 20th, which is this Friday. It will expire, so now Congress has to pass a new continuing resolution to keep government funded or face a government shutdown on Friday at midnight. Now, let's listen to Congresswoman Victoria Spartz and what she had to say about the process so far.
You know, they have this, they try to jam us last second because everyone, of course, wants to live for Christmas holidays. You know, they write bills without anyone even knowing what it is. It puts thousands of pages, over 1,000 of pages, you know, and please, you know, make sure vote before you know what is in it.
So, Jack, there's a lot of complaints by House Republicans because this bill was released on Tuesday. It's more than 1,500 pages, and lawmakers won't have enough time to read it if it's put to a vote on the House floor. The previous continuing resolution was under 30 pages. So, of course, there's a big discrepancy here. A lot of lawmakers asking why so many things have been added to this continuing resolution.
So have you had a chance to read the whole bill and what's in it and how are lawmakers reacting to this proposal?
Of course, well, the main point of obfuscation for House Republicans is the more than $100 billion in disaster relief aid for the victims and the areas affected by Hurricane Milton and Helene. But there's also a $1.7 to $1.9 billion provision that mandates the federal government to fully rebuild and fund the reconstruction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore that collapsed earlier this year. There's also a provision that moves federal budget to the District of Columbia so that the RFK Stadium passes to the control of the D.C. Council, paving the way, of course, for the Washington Commanders to eventually come back to the District of Columbia. And there's also a pay raise for lawmakers, which, of course, has brought up criticism from the public and constituencies. But it is worth mentioning that Republicans and lawmakers in general have not seen a cost of living adjustment since 2009. Now, let's listen to Republican Congressman Tim Burchett and his opinion on this continuing resolution.
And I've been a no on it a long time. You know my history with fiscal restraint, and we have none in this country. We are in a terrible situation.
So, Jack, there we had Congressman Tim Burchett from the House Freedom Caucus, obviously opposing the continuing resolution. Most of the House Freedom Caucus has also spoken against this bill.
Right. It seems House Republicans are not happy with this legislation. What is the President-elect Trump saying about this?
Well, actually, that was the big news today, Jack. First, it was Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the future heads of the Department of Government Efficiency. They took to social media to ask people to pressure their lawmakers to reject the continuing resolution. Then President-elect Donald Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance posted also on social media statements saying that they are requesting lawmakers and House Republicans to vote no on the continuing resolution. Very curious, President-elect Donald Trump is also requesting for the debt ceiling to be increased in a new bill, which he calls a clean CR, so a continuing resolution with no provisions attached. But let's see what Democrats have to say about this. Let's listen to Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader for Democrats.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan, and there was nothing more to say.
So the pressure is on lawmakers. They have until Friday at midnight to pass a continuing resolution or force a government shutdown. So we have Trump and his team pressuring House Republicans not to vote for the House CR. We had Speaker Johnson trying to whip votes for his proposal. And we have, as we just saw, Hakeem Jeffries saying that a deal is a deal. And if they have already negotiated this with House Republicans and Senate Republicans, then why aren't they fulfilling their promise?
All right, well, the clock is ticking on that. Luis Eduardo Martinez, thank you very much. And the Supreme Court today agreed to decide whether a ban on social media app TikTok violates the First Amendment, adding a major case to its docket just before Trump takes office. The ban is set to happen on January 19th unless the app's China-based parent company divests. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is now calling on the High Court to reject TikTok's appeal. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, urges the Supreme Court to deny an appeal by TikTok ahead of the ban that's set to take place next month. McConnell said in a brief to the court that the company's free speech argument is meritless and unsound. He says the right to free speech enshrined in the First Amendment does not apply to a corporate agent of the Chinese Communist Party. Last month, Congress mandated that TikTok's China-based parent company ByteDance divest from the app, or else the app will be taken down from app stores. TikTok estimates that 1 month after the ban, it would lose 1/3 of its 170 million U.S. users. McConnell says the Foreign Adversaries Act was the measured and deliberate result of careful legislation that would satisfy all manner of heightened scrutiny. The senator says TikTok's goal with the appeal is to delay the January 19th ban. He says TikTok hopes to get a different outcome under the Trump administration. Trump has said that he would want to look into a different route with TikTok and its national security risks. He did not go into further detail about how he would accomplish this. McConnell noted Congress set the January 19th date to avoid such political uncertainty. The Supreme Court has arguments scheduled for TikTok's appeal on January 10th. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
President-elect Trump's cabinet pick seeking support among senators as they prepare for confirmation hearings. It comes as Trump's former pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz is defending himself amid the looming release of a new report. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
As we're inching toward the 1-month countdown to a new Trump administration, President-elect Trump's cabinet picks are moving full steam ahead to court Senate support. And Kash Patel, Trump's pick for FBI director, and RFK Jr., Trump's pick for health secretary, both back on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, meeting with GOP senators. And Pete Hegseth, Trump's nominee for defense secretary, is facing his first public questioning soon. He confirmed on Wednesday that he'll get a confirmation hearing with the Senate Armed Services Committee on January 14th, adding that he's had over 50 meetings with GOP senators, as well as Democratic Senator John Fetterman. The president-elect has been reaffirming his support for Hegseth despite misconduct allegations against him. Another figure in the spotlight, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who already dropped his bid to get confirmed as Trump's initial pick for Attorney General. In a reversal, the GOP-led House Ethics Committee reportedly voted to release this report on Gaetz after this Friday, despite originally voting not to do so in November. Gaetz on Wednesday, decrying the move, says his previous behavior was embarrassing, though not criminal, stressing that he was exonerated in a separate probe and is now a changed man. Republican Congressman James Comer, meanwhile, says the American public ought to know more.
I think that the American people probably want to see this ethics report. I think the Ethics Committee knew that. Now, hopefully, Gaetz will be given plenty of opportunity to defend anything in there that he feels isn't true.
And away from Capitol Hill, the State Department says Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Wednesday met in person with Senator Marco Rubio, Trump's pick to be Blinken's successor. The conversation was, quote, constructive, and the State Department asked that it will support a seamless transition. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
The Federal Reserve making its final call on interest rates this year. It also offers some insight into where the U.S. economy could be headed in 2025. The central bank announced its third interest rate cut of the year, which has been dropped down another 0.25%, and lower costs for credit card debt, auto loans, and other borrowing might hit your wallet in the upcoming year. But inflation persists as the recent consumer price index shows a slight uptick from October, which is further away from the Fed's target rate of 2%. Meanwhile, in the stock market, the Dow plunged over 1,000 points today, and that's its longest losing streak since 1974. And coming up, members of Congress examine how the Chinese Communist Party is weaponizing intellectual property, and a man pleads guilty to opening and operating a Chinese police station right in New York City. How the Chinese regime has been ramping up its efforts to suppress its targets through media, and the response from the White House. We'll discuss with Sarah Cook, author of several reports about the CCP's foreign media influence. That and more when we return.
Will radical lies determine your child's future, or will timeless truths? Fathom the Good equips children with wisdom against the world. Our homeschool curriculum teaches high schoolers to think critically. We provide primary texts, original content, reasoning tools, and mentoring videos to help them transform America. Teach your children to navigate the world's woke confusion. Teach them to fathom the good.
Now is the perfect time to update your living room at Mathis Home during the holiday savings event. We have the largest selection of sofas starting at just $3.99 with all the styles you love at unbeatable prices. Like this sofa in a performance fabric with 2 recliners built in. Get yours today for just $7.96. They're in stock now, so you get fast, free delivery. For the best value, come to the holiday savings event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
بیست و سه سال
16 سال
عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیم برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چم که دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
مریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بحر في ذا نبو باوان رحمنا
ودمنا سؤالنا من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس نا وانا قو بس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبر تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبر
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرده و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده اليوم التوزيع
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Welcome back. I'm Jack Bradley. Members of Congress are probing China's weaponization of intellectual property, patents, and the legal system.
China is actively undermining U.S. leadership by devaluing these patents, directly harming American innovators and weakening their ability to compete globally. There are also national security threats in this situation.
And we find Chinese companies selling the module at a profit for as low as $7.50, whereas a Western company can't build it for under $9. Sans profit. Big question on how that happens without subsidies.
China's government has weaponized its legal system with a wide range of patent and competition law tools, price controls on international entities, forced technology transfers, and by providing selective legal protections and incentives seeking to advantage Chinese companies.
One of the things that happens with U.S. corporations that are not subsidized, when your budget goes down and your returns go down, you reduce your staffing at standards organizations. It doesn't occur with Chinese companies. When they're subsidized, they increase the number of individuals.
And just today, an agent of the Chinese Communist Party pled guilty for opening and operating an illegal Chinese police station right in Lower Manhattan. Chen Jinping admitted to opening the police station, which was an illegal arm of China's Ministry of Public Security. It occupied an entire floor of an office building in Lower Manhattan's Chinatown. It closed in the fall of 2022, and on top of this, Chen admitted to destroying evidence of communications with an official in Fuzhou, China. The FBI has acknowledged that China has opened multiple police stations in the U.S. A 2022 report by Safeguard Defenders found that China uses these overseas police stations to track down, arrest, and extradite people wanted by the CCP, including dissidents of the regime. The Executive Assistant Director Robert Wells of the FBI's National Security Branch said in a statement Wednesday, quote, "Today's acknowledgement of guilt is a stark reminder of the insidious efforts taken by the PRC government to threaten, harass, and intimidate those who speak against their Communist Party. These blatant violations will not be tolerated on U.S. soil. The FBI remains committed to preserving the rights and freedoms of all people in our country and will defend against transnational repression at every front." The Chinese Communist Party has been ramping up its transnational repression. To discuss this and the response from the White House, NTD's Steve Lance sat down with Sarah Cook, author of the underreported China newsletter.
Sarah Cook, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
Sarah, it's great to have you with us to discuss the Chinese Communist Party's what's perceived to be an increased effort to repress folks in the United States, which is otherwise known as transnational repression, so much so that we literally just saw the White House on Friday launching a new establishment of a China Censorship Monitor and Action Group. Talk to us about what you're seeing here with this. How significant is this?
I think this is quite significant in terms of really the U.S. even more so taking a whole of government approach to responding to what has long been, and for the last several years, an increasing effort by the Chinese Communist Party to influence the U.S. media landscape, to intimidate people in the United States, particularly critics and persecuted minorities who live here in the U.S. And so far, there have been a lot of responses from the executive branch that have been quite important. There have been, we've seen indictments from the department and prosecutions from the Department of Justice. But the CCP really takes a whole of society approach when it tries to target a country, especially one that it sees as an adversary like the United States. And so having, in terms of American resilience, a task force that includes not only people from the State Department or the intelligence services, but also departments like agriculture, education, for example, is actually quite important in terms of enhancing our resilience across the board.
To your point, this executive action has actually activated the Central Intelligence Agency, and as you mentioned, going all the way to the Agriculture Department. What types of things do you expect to come out of this? What are they going to be looking at?
So basically, this task force was established because Congress put provisions in a defense bill. And as part of that, they're required in 6 months to issue a report, and then after that, every year. And what that should contain are things related to what's possible that's not confidential and requires security clearance in terms of the various different mechanisms and tactics that the regime might be using to influence the U.S. information environment, engage in censorship, including trying to use economic leverage to make American companies, censor or engage in suppression of information, and this element of transnational repression. So intimidation of people in the United States, whether they're Hong Kongers or Uyghurs or Tibetans or Falun Gong practitioners who are trying to exercise their rights to freedom of expression, freedom of belief, who are often engaged in exposing human rights abuses and crimes that Chinese officials have committed. And what happens here in the US is these people are monitored. Sometimes they're physically attacked. Sometimes they're subjected to cyberbullying. Sometimes they're subjected to all kinds of disinformation and smear campaigns. Their family in China are harassed and threatened to try to silence them here. And I think the idea is that this task force would be both a way to centralize the various reports of these kinds of incidents, as well as to do a better job of integrating and coordinating the response.
You mentioned something, quite a few things, very interesting, but one of which is when we think, or at least when I do, of transnational repression, usually think about it on the individual level as the Chinese Communist Party attacking dissidents, attacking people from, the Chinese diaspora overseas. But you say that this actually can go to almost the corporate level and beyond just attacking individuals. How so?
So the Chinese Communist Party is very good, and this isn't just in the United States, is very good at establishing economic dependencies and then using that leverage to get local actors in another country to engage in suppression of information, sometimes in propaganda as well, on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. So when I was working at Freedom House, when we were doing research on the Chinese Communist Party's influence on media around the world, we saw a lot of examples of that, where you would have a local official trying to stop a journalistic investigative report about a Chinese mine in Africa. And they're getting a phone call maybe from the Chinese embassy, and they're trying to stop this report from being aired. Even here in the United States, there was an example with ESPN when there was that tweet about Hong Kong, and they were being put under pressure in terms of their broadcasts to China that are very lucrative. And there were leaked internal directives to people at the station to be careful how they talk about Hong Kong politics when they're on the air. So that's the type of influence. It's often very hard to gauge and document. But when you talk to people who are working sometimes in these outlets, when you talk to some of the local journalists, or when you occasionally have these kinds of leaks, then you really do see that there are various ways, especially when you get to the higher levels of media companies, owners often with various kinds of economic interests related to China, sometimes editors, and they can be pressured into engaging in suppression. And we see that with corporations as well.
Sarah of the CCP kind of in the back room pulling the strings. There was a specific, some language in this action from the White House that really stuck out, which was really focusing on the CCP's use of proxies. A lot of times, when we think of proxies, we think of Iran using proxies. We don't really think of the CCP as using proxies, but they're actually the master of it.
Yeah, so I think it gets really tricky here because there can often be lots of different layers. There can be private companies that sometimes get contracted to engage in disinformation campaigns on social media accounts. There can be the Communist Youth League doing all kinds of things, but we don't know that it can come out looking just like trolls, right? There are, various associations in the United States that sometimes have Chinese associations that are on the one hand part of the local community or at universities, but that in fact have ties to the consulates.
Author of the underreported China newsletter, Sarah Cook, thank you for your insights.
Thanks, Steve.
And now the Wall Street Journal reports that federal authorities are considering a ban on some Chinese internet routers. These routers provide internet to a huge chunk of America. Here's the story.
The Wall Street Journal reports that U.S. authorities are considering a ban on routers from a Chinese manufacturer. According to the journal's unnamed sources, the Department of Commerce Defense, and Justice are currently investigating China's TP-Link technology company. NTD cannot independently verify the report. TP-Link routers connect Americans to the internet, and authorities have reportedly expressed concerns over a potential national security risk.
It could be really dangerous. Everything you do on your computer, everything your family does, all the games you play online, all those things that you're doing in your house that is transmitting through the internet could be essentially stolen.
Tech expert Brian Horning says he doesn't know whether the routers are actually a threat, but says it's possible they could be. TP-Link has over 60% of the U.S. router market for homes and small businesses. Even the Defense Department uses them, popular partially because of low prices.
There's vulnerabilities in the firmware of TP-Link routers that could and have given hackers access to the device that it's very hard to detect.
Tony Sabai is a cybersecurity expert at Checkpoint Software Technologies, which has researched TP-Link routers. It's concluded that hackers could have access to them in a way that's very hard to detect. TP-Link says it's fully in line with industry security standards and says it's willing to work with the U.S. government to address security risks. Reuters reports that the Commerce, Justice, and Defense Departments and TP-Link did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Coming up, January 10th, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear TikTok's appeal. What does the timing mean, and how will it all play out? We'll talk with a former FCC policy advisor for all the details. Russia detains a suspect in the killing of a Russian general in charge of nuclear defense. What Moscow says about the suspect's alleged motives. That and more when we return.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
I'm Richard Karn, and I love my hose. It ain't those old hoses. This is my hose. The new Pocket Hose Copper Bullet, now infused with real copper, so your water is always clean and lead-free. Just turn on the water and watch your hose grow and grow. And when you turn off the water, away it goes. Our new inner tube uses 3 layers of high-strength latex on the inside. Then it's wrapped in a new polymer filament jacket, 3 times stronger than the other hoses. But my favorite part of our new hose build? The oversized, easy-to-grip fittings. Get the super light 25-foot Pocket Hose Copper Bullet today for only $29.99. But wait, call now and get our copper spray nozzle with our exclusive thumb drive free. This is an exclusive release of our newest Pocket Hose. Order now.
Call 1-800-960-8919. That's 1-800-960-8919 or visit copperbullet.hose.com. Order now.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back. I'm Jack Bradley. The Supreme Court will hear arguments on January 10th on whether the TikTok ban violates free speech rights under the First Amendment. Now, joining me now to discuss this latest development is Nathan Lemer, former FCC policy advisor and CEO of Fixed Gear Strategies. Nathan, thank you for joining us. Does this indicate that the Supreme Court finds merits in TikTok's arguments? And what do you make of the timing here?
I think it's an important step by the Supreme Court to finally say that this is a problem, that TikTok is a problem, and that the Congress and the president have ruled appropriately to move forward to ban TikTok, to make sure that it's divested and out of our internet ecosystem.
And now, how should the U.S. government balance national security concerns with the protection of free speech in the context of platforms like TikTok?
Well, I think it's pretty clear in the law and the way the district court ruled 2 weeks ago that TikTok, the ban against TikTok is about the conduct of TikTok and not actually about the content. So it's not a First Amendment issue. It's actually a national security concern. And TikTok has at every step of the way shown that it is not a wholly independent entity, but a part of the CCP. And I think the Supreme Court will put the final nail in the coffin to say that, no, this law is legal. And TikTok must divest by January 19th. And if they don't, they will be kicked off the platforms.
Well, the TikTok app that we have in the U.S. does not really match the version that they have in China. As we know it's very different. Why would China's ByteDance fight all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court to keep an app in the U.S. that's essentially banned from its own citizens?
No, it's a great question. One I would actually ask some Chinese Communist Party officials. But the reality is that TikTok is quite popular. It's an incredibly appealing app to many people, able to be short form videos that can spread and share your story, your narrative. But the reality is that behind the scenes, what's going on the app is it's a spy device allowing the totalitarian state to spy on Americans and users across the world who use it. And so what the Congress has passed and what the Supreme Court will evaluate is whether this was legally an appropriate measure to ban TikTok, much like the United States government banned Huawei and ZTE a couple years ago. It's the same concept, which is that this communications network, this communications platform is in fact a spy device used for surveillance against Americans and should not be on any of our platforms like Apple or Google.
Now, if the court rules against ByteDance, do you think that it'll reconsider to sell TikTok to an American buyer before the January 19th deadline here?
I think it'll have to. The reality is that if they don't sell, then you're going to have a lot of upset investors, but also you're going to have a lot of users who are going to be kicked off the platform. And the reality is that they have a path forward. There are American buyers who would like to buy this, but the only way that they can buy this is if China divests entirely and is separated in a wholly owned independent entity that is operated by Western powers who are not going to hand over our information to the Chinese government or any other foreign adversary for them.
Right. So the very next day after this decision, January 20th, Trump takes office, and he met with the CEO of TikTok on Monday. He said that he would take a look at TikTok and that he has a soft spot for the app. What, if anything, could Trump be considering as an alternative to the ban, and particularly with his hawkish stance on China?
No, I think that's exactly right. I think TikTok actually is another arrow in his quiver to hold China accountable. We see that we're talking about rebalancing our trade. We're talking about ways that the United States can hold China accountable in the Pacific. I think this plays a role in Trump's effort to hold China accountable and to allow us to reign supreme, I think, in the West and make sure that our technologies are flourishing. And so I look forward to seeing what he does. I think that he has some incredible advisors around him, whether it's Marco Rubio, Jacob Hellberg, individuals who have been really staunchly opposed to TikTok. And I think this is an opportunity for them to think critically about how we can move forward in the next steps. He's the deal maker, the consummate deal maker, and this is an opportunity to make a deal that can actually put Americans forward and also allow next generation innovation to flourish.
Right now, if the TikTok ban stands, what would be the legal precedent set for future federal regulation of social media platforms in the U.S.?
I think it's a separate issue. I think the reality is that China has a connection here, and it's a national security concern, and that's different than what you might see with other companies like Facebook or Google or Instagram, et cetera. Like the reality is that this app is not owned by an independent actor. It is owned and operated by ByteDance on behalf of the Chinese government, and that's the difference. The reality is this is not about content. This is about the conduct of the company. And none of these other companies we're talking about does business in China. They have no relationships. You can't access Meta on the App Store in China. The reality is it's only here in the U.S.
Nathan Lemur, thank you very much for sharing your insights here today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And now an update on yesterday's killing of a senior Russian general. Moscow now says that it has a suspect in custody. The citizen of Uzbekistan has reportedly confessed to the crime. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest.
A Russian news outlet published this video on Wednesday. It allegedly shows a suspect confessing to the killing of Russian Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. It's not clear what conditions the unnamed suspect was speaking in. Russian investigators say this about the arrest of the alleged killer.
During interrogation, he explained that he was recruited by the Ukrainian Special Services. On their instructions, he arrived in Moscow and received a homemade explosive device.
This video shows Kirillov and his assistant leave their apartment building on Tuesday morning. That's when a bomb exploded, killing both of them. General Kirillov was the chief of Russia's military nuclear protection forces.
To monitor the general's home, the suspect rented a car-sharing vehicle. The footage from it was broadcast online to the organizers of the terrorist attack in the city of Dnipro.
Russian prosecutors say the suspect was promised $100,000 and permission to move to a European Union country for killing the general. The Kremlin on Wednesday said this proves Ukraine is using terrorist methods to attack Russia.
And this once again justifies our actions during the special military operation.
The Kremlin also says that nuclear weapons treaties with the West could be a thing of the past. That's due to the lack of trust between Moscow and Western allies. But Russia's deputy foreign minister suggests this could change through dialogue once President-elect Trump returns to office.
Such a dialogue took place with the Trump administration during its first term in office. Managing this crisis and reaching a more stable ground should probably be set as a task.
He added that no contacts have taken place between Russia and the incoming Trump team so far. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
And coming up, with the head of the antitrust division of the DOJ stepping down, what challenges could Trump's administration face in continuing to break up monopolies? We'll speak with the former chair of the multi-state antitrust task force. And as the public continues to ponder the mysterious drone sightings over the East Coast, we hear from the people about what their speculation is when we come back.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Welcome back. I'm Jack Bradley. What challenges could Trump's Justice Department face in continuing antitrust cases started by the Biden administration? And how will bipartisanship among attorneys general work in litigating those cases? Well, NTD's Steve Lance spoke with Gwendolyn Lindsay Cooley, former chair of the Multi-State Antitrust Task Force and former Assistant Attorney General at the Wisconsin Department of Justice.
Gwendolyn Lindsay Cooley, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's great to have you with us. Gwendolyn, the head of the Antitrust Department at the Justice Department, Jonathan Cantor, is stepping down on Friday. He leaves behind a record number of cases when it comes to taking on big companies and conglomerates. What are some of the biggest challenges in this regard facing us right now?
Yes. So the U.S. Department of Justice, whom I worked with on many occasions, has a number of big cases, including the Google search case, right? And that is currently going through the remedies phase. They have certainly many investigations that we can't talk about, but there's also some important cases against companies like Ticketmaster, Live Nation, something that is of much concern to many people who are interested in the media. There are cases against the NCAA. There are also a number of other big tech cases like the one against Apple. So they've got a lot of work to do, not to mention investigating about 1,000 mergers a year.
And you're actually in town because you were up on the Hill yesterday testifying before the Judiciary Committee. I want to play a clip of your testimony and get you to respond.
So you want to make sure that you've got good bipartisan and broad support there. Settlements, honestly, having states that are not going to just go along to get along because they want to support their sister states of the same party and are happy to stick it to them.
How do you see bipartisanship working in the next administration that will be litigating these antitrust cases on the docket from the previous administration?
So I would say a perfect example of how bipartisanship is likely to work in the next administration is how they navigate the Apple case. There you've got the New Jersey Attorney General's office, who is local counsel, and I'll note I was counsel on that case, so there's not much I can say about the substance. But logistically, you'll have New Jersey local counsel, and they will be able to handle a lot of the logistical stuff, right? They will have the relationships with the court, right? That is invaluable, an invaluable experience. From my past experience, especially talking about choosing witnesses, especially expert witnesses, it's really useful to have a broad variety of backgrounds and come at it from across the country, right? Perspectives on who would actually be the best fit as a witness.
Now, with that said, Google was found liable as a monopoly this year. Now we see big tech companies and CEOs donating in mass, if you will, to Trump's inauguration fund. Are big tech companies in a precarious position, and could we see more required to break up during Trump's presidency?
So I'm going to push back a little bit on that. My experience working with the Department of Justice over the years, they are very attentive to the rule of law. And so while I think companies have the right to donate to whomever they would like, I have never had any concerns about the impartiality of the Department of Justice as they bring cases.
And with that said, cybersecurity firm Check Point is now reporting a new hacking method, sending Google Calendar invites. Does the ubiquity of certain tech platforms make us more vulnerable to these attacks, or does it help us concentrate on our cybersecurity efforts?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure that we know the answer to it, but I think that there are multiple problems with consolidation, and certainly having additional opportunities and vectors for attack is a very concerning issue. Whether that would be solved by more competition, it's unclear, but I suspect what that would, if there's more competition in cybersecurity, then you would see that benefits from that. So
you talked to us a little bit earlier about pending litigation with Google, a relatively big case that you mentioned off the top. Talk to us about some of the substance in that case, why it's there, and what is going to be litigated.
So there is only so much I can say about the Google search case because I was also counsel on that case. Generally, there are real concerns about Google as a monopolist in search. Right? The stage we're at right now is in the remedies stage, looking to see whether the court agrees with the Department of Justice's filings that say that they recommend that Google be broken up into various segments. I think that structural remedies of that size, right, where there's a breakup of companies, those are not very common. We don't see them involuntarily imposed upon companies very often. So it's difficult to see how the court will decide on that. There are other remedies that the Department of Justice is asking for that I think are probably pretty likely, including choice screens and things like that. But
now, you were a former assistant attorney general in the state of Wisconsin, former being the operative word. You're going to be taking on a new endeavor. Would you like to tell us about it?
Oh, how nice. Yes, so I'm creating an artificial intelligence merger screening tool that will help improve efficiency for antitrust enforcers and help provide clarity for merging parties so that they can structure their deals more appropriately. Companies would just enter the names of the companies, and then we would pull from a curated database that would just analyze a merger transaction and give it a score on a scale of 1 to 100 and see how I make competitive.
We'll be keeping an eye out for it.
Thank you.
Gwendolyn Lindsay Cooley, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Walmart testing out body cams in its stores to record customers from a first-person perspective as they shop. Now, is this a good idea? Here's the story.
Walmart is testing out body cameras in its stores. Online images show some stores have signs warning that cameras are in use. The cameras themselves are yellow and black, designed to be worn either as a necklace or attached to a vest. Walmart says it's just testing them out. It suggests that if it likes the results, cameras could be more common in its stores. On the popular internet forum Reddit, one user wrote, "As if I needed any more reasons to never shop there." Another wrote, "This seems odd."
That would be a nay of body cameras in Walmart. You already have, especially in Walmart, you have, I would say, hundreds of cameras capturing everything that's done within the store. And now it's even more in your face of a person standing there in front of you.
Business consultant Eric Brown says shoppers may be put off over privacy concerns. Company documents tell employees to record an event if an interaction with a customer is escalating, suggesting the cameras help with troublesome shoppers. Brown, who spent over 20 years as a Green Beret, says security guards are already a strong deterrent.
They could put more training into like the actual de-escalation of talking it out, or just getting a police person to take over if you're going to escalate to violence.
The idea is controversial. An executive at the National Retail Federation, David Johnston, says the cameras reduce conflict because people will behave better when they see they're being recorded. But worker groups say this isn't a substitute for de-escalation training.
Mystery continues to loom over America's East Coast as residents are reporting more drone sightings over their airspace. NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall to hear from folks about their speculations.
Give us your best guess. What's your take on those mysterious drone sightings that's been popping up in the East Coast? Starting with you.
I'm not too sure, honestly. I'm from New York as well, so that whole area has been very weird with that.
I know someone knows what they are. I don't. Unfortunately, it's not me.
I mean, I haven't seen something like that's too big of a threat to our society so far, at least.
And I don't really know what's going on or if the video is AI created, but if it's real, I'm a little bit scared.
If this was hobbyists and stuff like that, you'd think that it would be something that's been happening, right? It wouldn't be all of a sudden we've got 10 drones all in the same space and everybody's noticing it.
Could be aliens, you know, we never know. I've seen too much in my life to rule out anything, honestly. So
what I was hearing is that it was Iran, but I don't think it's. I think Iran has too much on its plate right now in terms of what's going on just around in its own neighborhood.
If they were doing anything illegal, I think the FAA would be all over it. Either we're not being told something or it's all okay.
A lot of them look like, maybe that's just a commercial plane. I don't know. Some of them look kind of blurry. I don't really buy the whole aliens thing.
How are you guys reacting to those mixed messaging coming from different parts of the government?
It's a little bit alarming because you don't know exactly who's telling the truth and who's not.
Honestly, I'm sure someone knows what's going on. They're just trying to figure out how to tell everyone.
I don't feel like it's just as big as a mystery as everybody else try to make it out to be.
I'm not necessarily surprised. I think historically in the U.S. we've had a lot of, miscommunication between different government departments.
Maybe it's keeping, chaos safe, but maybe it's not just telling us the truth, to be honest, like as us as American citizens.
I haven't heard all the mixed messaging. Is it aliens? That's the real question that we should be asking.
There definitely needs to be an independent investigation. It's important that the skies over D.C., New York, New Jersey are clear.
The whole theory that I heard about the boat off the coast, right, and it possibly being a foreign entity, seems a bit odd. You know what I mean? That is concerning. It's a bit odd that we can't get a straight answer on it.
It seems like they're just trying to cover something up, maybe a little bit. Like, if it's not government devices, what could it possibly be? It doesn't look like privatized, like drones or something like that.
That's all we have for you tonight on the Capitol Report. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. From the nation's capital, I'm Jack Bradley. Have a nice evening. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.